Hi y'all, thanks so much for stopping back by. If this is your first time here, then welcome. My name is Lori Livers, and on this channel we talk about how I use real estate rental properties to create almost completely passive income. We talk about DIY and home improvement, and we talk about everything planning and organizing because for me, that's what makes all the other stuff possible. So I hope this sounds interesting to you. Please hit that subscribe button down below and ring the bell so you can be notified of all the new videos coming your way. Today's video is all about comps, comparables. We use these to determine our ARV, after repair value, and our market rent value. So these are really important values to understand in making the buying decision. So let's get started. First and foremost, if you have the opportunity to work with a realtor and running comps, do not pass up that opportunity. There is a science to running comps, and the science is what we're going to go over today. You can do that, I can do that, anybody can do that. But there's also an art to it, and that's what a realtor really brings to the table that I don't have. So in my opinion, if you have the opportunity to work with a realtor and running comps, do not pass up that opportunity. But if you don't have the chance to work with a realtor, know that you can do a good job on your own. And this is how to do that. Like everything else in the world, the internet has brought a level of transparency to real estate transactions that we've really never had before. Consumers have never had the access that they have now. And now that we've got that access, we really have the tools we need to do the science part of running comps and figure out where we need to be in our numbers. So I'm going to go out on a limb and guess that if you're watching this video, you might be interested in the real estate market. And if you're interested in the real estate market, or at least the passive income that the real estate market can bring to you, you might also have stumbled upon websites like Zillow and Redfin or Realtor.com. They can be fantastic tools to use when trying to determine your comps so that you can understand your ARV and your rent values. So when I'm trying to make a buying decision, I need to have two numbers, very clear two numbers. I need to understand my ARV, my after repair value, and this is the value that my house should appraise for when I'm done with my rehab. The other number I need to be very clear on is what I can expect my rent to be when I've rehabbed that property and I rent it out. For the ARV value, I always start with Redfin. And the reason I use Redfin is because you can create a free account and Redfin will tell you exactly what houses have sold for in that neighborhood. So all you do is you go to Redfin and you go to the search bar and you put in the address of the property that you're considering purchasing. When you get that search result, it will generally tell you that house is either for sale or what it's listed for, or it'll tell you that house is not for sale. You'll also get a Redfin estimate of the value. You can see a Zillow, I think they call it a Zestimate, on their website. But take this estimate value with a grain of salt. You want to do your own research here. So on Redfin, you want to look in the area as close as possible, like within a half a mile or a mile, ideally within the same subdivision of the property that you're considering. And you want to look at the houses that have most recently sold in the neighborhood. You don't want to necessarily look at what's for sale. I can list my property for sale for any number I want. If I wanted to list a house for sale for $250,000, but nothing in the neighborhood is ever sold for $175,000 or more, I can list it for that. I'm not going to get that. So it's really not a comparable number when you're trying to make a good, solid buying decision. And that's what we're getting this ARV for, is so that we can make a good buying decision on a house. So you only want to look at what has actually sold. Ideally, you want to identify at least 3, but more like 5 or 6 properties that have been rehabbed to a condition that is similar, equivalent to what you're going to rehab your property at too. You want to make sure you're comparing apples to apples. You don't want to consider a property that has been rehabbed beyond the expectations of the neighborhood as a comparable for your property, because you're not going to do that. You're looking for properties that have been rehabbed as close as possible, in a size that is as close as possible to the size of the house and the rehab condition that you plan for the property that you're considering investing in. Once you've found these at least 3, hopefully more like 5 or 6 properties that are very similar to what yours are going to be, you just want to get the average sale price. And with that average sale price, you want to get the average price per square foot. So if you just add up the square foot of all the sold houses and add up the sales price of all the sold houses and divide that sales price by that total square foot price, you're going to have your average price of whatever it is. For instance, if my average sale price is $200,000 and my average square foot of the houses that were sold for that average price of $200,000 is $1,500, then I know I have an average square foot price of about $133 per square foot. So I know if the property I'm considering investing in is about 1,350 square feet, I can expect my house to reasonably appraise for about $179,500. So I'm going to be conservative and I'm going to estimate my ARV for my buying decision purposes at $179,000. There are some factors that can affect the ARV that you can't see as a consumer on Redfin. And this is another instance where a realtor is really, really important to have on your team. But just keep this in mind. The reason you want to be conservative with your ARV is that maybe you found all these 4, 5, 6 houses that sold for $200,000. But what you can't see on the consumer side of Redfin or anywhere else outside of the realtor portion of an MLS is what buyer concessions there might have been on these houses. If every one of those buyers contributed to their seller's closing cost at $5,000 or even $8,000, you can't see that in that sales price of $200,000. But the real sales price of that house is really only $192,000 or $195,000, depending on what the seller concessions might have been. So keep that in mind. That's why you always want to go with a conservative ARV, but a reasonably conservative ARV. Now that you have your ARV, the next thing you need to know to make a good buying decision is what do homes rent for in that neighborhood. So for this, you can't use Redfin. Redfin doesn't do any work with rentals, but Zillow does. In fact, if you haven't seen my rental video, I'll link it here because Zillow is a tool I personally use to list my properties for rent. So when I go over to Zillow, I do the same thing in the search bar. I enter in the address of the property that I am considering purchasing. And what I'm looking for is I'm looking for houses that have recently rented in that area as close as possible, that are in a similar condition to what I plan on rehabbing my house to, so I can get an idea of what I can expect to rent my property for. I will sometimes review the other houses that are for rent, even if they haven't been rented yet, because many property managers, such as myself, take their homes off Zillow as soon as they have them rented because the phone just rings and rings and rings. I live in an area where there's a huge shortage of good quality rental properties, so they go very quickly. The other thing I really take a good hard look at on Zillow is if there's a house that's in that same subdivision, same neighborhood, same area that has been for rent for a long time. I really look at the condition of that property and the price they're charging. I know in my area there is a real shortage of rental properties. In my experience, my houses rent in 3 days or less. I've never had a property listed for rent for more than 3 days. So if something is up on Zillow and it's been available for 60 days, I know that it's probably priced too high for the conditions that the house is in. It's priced too high for the neighborhood, or there's some other issue with it. But that's something I want to take a good look at, because if it is similarly rehabbed to what I'm expecting to rehab my property at, and it's listed at a price that I would want to list my property at, and it's not renting, that is incredibly valuable information for me to have before I make that buying decision. I do not want to buy a house that's not going to return the cash flow that I'm looking for. And I would think you probably don't want to either. Once I've spent a little time on Redfin and spent a little time on Zillow, done a little bit of math, I am pretty confident in my numbers. A realtor who knows the market you're considering investing in really, really well brings art to the science that you just can't overlook. If you don't have a realtor available to you, don't let that stop you. If you are really realistic about what you're working with, realistic about what you're going to do with the house, and realistic about what you can expect in rent, then you know what you're getting into before you get into it, and you can make a great buying decision. If you've made it to the end of this video, then thank you. Thanks so much for hanging out. I hope you want to hang out some more. Please do hit that subscribe button down below and ring the bell. I have so much more stuff coming your way, and it's been so fun for me to get started on this adventure, on this YouTube journey, and I'd love to have you come along with me. Until next time, bye y'all. Y'all, this has been so weird getting started on YouTube. Like, you hate the way you look on camera and you hate the way you sound on camera, but it's just, this is it. Like, this is what I look like and this is what I sound like. So here I am getting started on YouTube. No, I'm just being an idiot. What is this? Am I doing the chicken dance? Like, what is actually happening here? So when you start to film on YouTube, like, you're so critical of yourself and all the things. Like, I talk with my hands, and now I feel like I'm just like, what am I trying to be? A hand puppet? I don't know. What is actually happening here right now?